Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. All right, and today's guest is Cesar Quintero. Hi, Cesar.
Hi, Adi. So great to be here.
So great to have you as a guest because you are the true definition of entrepreneur. You have an amazing story of how you started your business, how you grew your business, sold your business, and now you dedicate your life to actually help other entrepreneurs to have a life by design. And your motto is to change one company at a time. And I know that that's what you do. You know, you have very satisfied clients, you help them tremendously, and your energy is contagious, as our listeners are going to see. So definitely, and you're the author of 2 books. There is one on its way, going to be released in January. So we're going to talk all about how, as an entrepreneur, you can create a life by design by putting in systems. And we're going to talk about those systems.
Yes, we will, for sure.
Okay. Well, let's start first of all with your story. Tell us the story about how you got to be an entrepreneur and grow your own business and what happened then. It's a very inspiring story.
Sure. I'm originally from Venezuela in South America, and I graduated as a process engineer because process was not in my veins, Adi, I promised. But
well, we have that in common, Cesar. We both. I grew up in Venezuela as well, so we are there. And then I'm an industrial engineer. You're a process engineer, so that's how we kind of like immediately when we met.
Exactly.
Oh, and we have to give a shout out to John Corcoran from Rise 25 for introducing us. So go, John. Thank you very much.
Yeah, amazing guy. So I studied process engineer. I went to work with Procter Gamble for about 4 years, and I was 24 at the time, almost turning 25. And that's when Venezuela was starting to go down the crisis. And my parents, my dad was American, and I had the American passport. And I'm like, you know what? I'm almost 25. I want to get married, move to Miami, and start a business all at the same time. Because, there's no risk at that age, I guess. And so we moved to Miami, and I started a food delivery company. So it was we had an industrial kitchen, and we cooked all the meals and delivered it to people in their offices, called Fit to Go. Now, it seems very common today, but in 2004, that was a little ahead of its time. It was pre-Facebook, pre-Uber Eats, pre-all of that. So I went door to door and convinced people it was convenient to have your meal delivered every day. The market grew because it was healthy, it was delivery, and the market grew. We grew with it. We were the first company in Miami to do it. The issue with growth, and you know that, right? It creates complexity, it creates people issues, it creates a ton of things. So we had like 32 employees at the time. I was like a little over $1 million in revenue. And I was answering the phones, delivering meals, cooking the meal when the chef didn't show up, and like just doing everything. And I was just running. And what I realized is the more my business grew, the more I was doing. And little by little, I realized that, it wasn't the right use of my time. I was running like a chicken without a head constantly, and actually without a leg, or practically a dead chicken. I was a dead chicken at that point because I was doing so many things that I couldn't really focus on what really mattered. Then in 2012, I got hit with a class action lawsuit. So I don't know if a lot of people hearing this podcast have gone through that, but in my case, it was a baseless class action lawsuit. It was a 5th company targeted by an attorney and a woman. And she told me to my face that she's already bankrupted 2 companies and that, she's going to take the money. And I'm like, so I took my ego and I wanted to prove that I had done nothing wrong. And I put all of my energy towards that lawsuit, and I forgot about the business. I forgot about my people, and the business just started stagnating and going down. And all my energy was just in trying to prove that I was right and going through this ego trip and trying to make sure that, I did what I could. And then I realized, that it wasn't worth the time. And I went through a purpose discovery, a Simon Sinek with Fran Biederman in New York. And Fran led me through this purpose discovery. And what I realized through that purpose discovery is that my purpose was people all along. You see, like for these 7-8 years in business, I was always focused on the process, on the profit, on the product, but I was never focused on my people. And I realized that my why is to empower others so that they could live the life they want to live, which is what I call the life by design. And I realized I needed to change my shift. I needed to change my energy. I needed to change where I focused. And if I get my energy from people, I need to be focusing on my people. So that's when everything kind of changed. And then I started thinking more about how can I help my team get what they want from their life. And little by little, everything started flowing again. And we were able to settle the lawsuit and made all the money back within 1 year. We quadrupled in profits, doubled in sales. My team felt ownership. I had more and more time in my hands. And I realized that what was missing all along was me being aligned with my purpose. And then with time, little by little, I started doing other things and started 2 other businesses. And eventually my employees said that, it's time for me to move on. So they bought me away from my company. So 2 of my employees bought the company from me. And that's when I started the coaching and the helping other entrepreneurs going through my same journey of self-discovery, purpose, and then implementing the processes and tools. I forgot a big component, which is I implemented EOS in my own company at the same time while I was going through all this. So it was an operating system that helped my team really take ownership of and accountability of their roles and responsibilities. So through all this, I went through this cycle of different things, and I wanted to teach that to other people who are going through the journey. And that's why I founded the Profit Recipe, which is our firm right now, where our mission is to empower leaders so that we change the world one company at a time. We can help teach all these systems, to teach all these concepts, not only to the owner and entrepreneur, but to all the leaders that need to take ownership of the business and really take ownership of their roles. So, I'm sorry, I don't know if I took too long to tell my whole story, but
no, it's an amazing story and so inspiring. So it's really all about the purpose. It's also about grit and persistence, because you persisted and you believed, you had a dream. When you were left Venezuela, I can relate to it because I had the same. I wanted to come to the US. I knew that I wanted to come here and get a great job, etc. And just happened. It's kind of like having the vision, right? You had the vision right there of what you wanted to do. You live that vision, you made it. And then you go, okay, there is more to life than just making money, right? Although when you were helping people, you were helping by giving them very healthy meals.
And to be honest, I was not making any money. At that point,
so you were not making money. You were helping
we were
people,
not
but
making
not
money.
making
The
money.
business was just driving me insane for no money. And I'm like, and I would see all my friends in the corporate world and in different places and me saying, why did I choose this life? This doesn't make sense. After 8 years of giving it my all and the lawsuit and the thing, like, where is this money going? So I think not even making the money. But yeah, I think purpose.
But then you find your purpose. So then the profit recipe. So let's talk about the profit recipe. And what is the profit recipe?
So the Profit Recipe is a firm that we help leaders in different ways. We call it unlock their flywheel. So part of this book is I talk a lot about the entrepreneurial flywheel or the leadership flywheel of where we are in different phases and how do we use different tools to move through these stages. So the Profit Recipe is a firm. We have 6 partners in the firm. We all come from different backgrounds. We all immigrants. We're all in Miami or South Florida. And we all help companies implement EOS, purpose, team building, and leadership development. So we do everything we can, the same journey I went through. But I realized is that this is not my story. I think this is a story of most entrepreneurs out there. Most people get started and they're like, I need to prove this, I need to do this. And then they go through like, oh, I can't do it all. I need a team. And then they go to the team and then they need to implement systems and processes and things. And then they need to start discovering, what do I want from life? What did I get in this mess? So I think this story was not unique. And the more we talk to entrepreneurs, the more we teach and go through these companies, the more we realize this story is not unique. this story is every entrepreneur's life. And that's what the book is all about, is what are the systems and stages that we go through, and how do you identify what stage you're in, and how do you get unstuck to really unlock that flywheel? And the reason we called it a flywheel is, I don't know, the Jim Collins reference, the flywheel, it's really hard the first time you're kind of pushing the wheel through, but then the second and third time it gets easier and easier, right? So my first business, it took me 7 years to get to $1 million. With my next 2 businesses, I was in $1 million within the year, because I already had the teams, I already had the knowledge, I already went through a lot of the things that I need to go through to learn. And then I eventually, when I start my next ones, I imagine it'll be faster and faster and faster that we can scale up. So that's why I call it a flywheel, because the more you do it, the more your first business is just your practice round, is kind of what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're right. It is a unique story because it's you, but it's something that other entrepreneurs experience and resonate with. That's why I wanted you to start with that story, because, we have listeners that are listening right now. They're entrepreneurs and they go, okay, great, I'm relating to this story. I am in your story, Cesar. I am in that stage, or I'm in the beginning of this stage. I haven't figured out my why, or maybe I have figured out my purpose, but now I have to figure out how to execute it. So let's give some concrete advice on how do you use the profit recipe, which I refer to it as also the name of your book. So, because the profit recipe you use in order to actually create a life by design, right?
Yeah.
So walk me through some advice or some ways that you help a business owner, an entrepreneur. What advice would you give to somebody who's listening to us right now, that they are in the middle of all this? Oh, the flywheel is really hard to move, right?
And I think the first step is to identify where you're at. So I'm going to share here. I know for your audio listeners, they won't be able to see it, but for your video listeners, they'll be able to see it. And that way, I'll explain it verbally so people know. But basically, next
and
to me
then,
is
Cesar, we can also we can actually put those slides in the notes for the podcast. So if you're listening
Perfect.
to us right now, you can go back to the podcast page and actually download it.
Awesome. So basically, what we talk about is the flywheel has 5 different stages. And the stage where you usually start, and these numbers aren't for the stage of the importance, but it's usually where you start. It's the startup phase. And the startup phase is when you're starting up the business and you're going down this phase, and you're trying to understand if you have the right market fit, if it's the right product, if it's the right service, if it's the right customer, and you're trying to scale it, see if this model is going to scale this channel. Where do we do it? But then you also need to do it profitably, because you don't want to be like me, that you were 5 years trying to get profitability and you're like, oh my God, food and logistics. Oh my God, what did I get myself into? But the whole startup by design phase is, it feels that you're trying to test and measure single thing, making sure that you got your pricing right, your product right, your client right, all these things right. But then once you prove scale and you prove profitability, once you hit that, 800 to $1 million mark where you're scaling and you're growing, that's usually when you start understanding that you can't do it all. And that's where we go to stage number 2, which is, how do you become a leader by design? And when you're talking about leader by design, it's really understanding what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. So we start with self-awareness. So when you're stuck in this phase, what it feels like is that you have all the answers. Nobody else knows how to do anything. You have to do everything because nobody can do it right? And then you have little self-awareness of what you're good at and what you're not good at. But then it takes a little vulnerability of understanding, I held the finance seat in my business for 10 years. And everyone in my family will tell you I'm the worst cash manager there is. So so Fit to Go always was profitable, I had no cash in the bank ever. Right? I was the worst person to be the finance seat in my company, but I wasn't vulnerable enough to say, you know what? This is not something I'm good at. I should let this go, because everybody told me, you're the owner of the company. You have to know your finances. You have to know your numbers. You have to do. And then I'm like, okay. But then if I'm not good at it, why do it? And then be vulnerable enough to understand and say, wow, these are the things I should be letting go. These are the things where my superpowers are, and I should be spending more time where I'm good at, and start delegating all the rest. So
but still maintaining, I would assume that you still maintain the knowledge, because as a business owner, you still want to have knowledge of your finances, but let somebody else figure out and have a CFO that is in control of it.
Exactly. And then control, and maybe give you insights. Like, I think one of the issues I had as a leader going through this phase is that I thought that I knew everything, and that everybody around me, I was just hiring people where I told people what to do. Where now I realize, once I went through the first wheel, I'm like, no, I need smarter people in the room than me. Even if they make more money than me, I don't care. I just want them to fix and solve all the issues, so I don't have to think about these things, and I can use my time where I'm great at, you know? So
Sure.
that takes a little bit of self-awareness and vulnerability to really understand what you're good at, what you're not, and where you should be. And one thing I tell most of the entrepreneurs out there, just because you started a business doesn't mean you have a job in it. Some of us are not meant to have jobs. And if you're a startup person and you want to start, find people that you can start delegating to. And that's when we go to stage number 3, which is really developing that team by design. It's how do we start developing a team that we can depend on? And that could be both internal and external. Internal is getting that number 2. We call in EOS, we call them the integrator. The person who's good at follow through, who's good at consensus building, who really they're project manager type. Visionaries, entrepreneurs are typically 1,000 ideas at a minute, and they want to change their product and change the client all the time. The integrator is more of the person who make sure that the vision becomes realized, right? They implement the vision, execution, and all of that. But then you need a leadership team. You need somebody to be making marketing decisions, sales decisions, operational decisions, financial decisions. That is not you, because the more you do, the less you're spending your time where you're great at and what you need to be doing. So we need to understand who's going to help you, who's going to be that leadership team, and what's the right structure to get you there. Right?
You know, that's so true. And I want to say something on that in terms. I just interviewed a very successful entrepreneur that was able to actually get out of his business, right? By working on the business and not in the business.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I talked to him about being a visionary, and that's what entrepreneurs are. But he said something that's very true, that visionaries also can be doers, you know, it is your baby. Yeah. Like you said, in your own business, you were cooking, you were answering the phones, you were doing all of that. So it's not that you were just able to dream and not able to do. You're totally capable of execution. However, your superpowers rely, you know, if you can actually concentrate on the future and vision and building the future, and then find somebody else that can be your second in command, the COO, the integrator, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Then you can actually concentrate on that vision, where that is really you can be good at a lot of things. You're probably awesome at answering the phone, but in terms of income producing activities, it's better for you to just envision, be the visionary for the future and
it's the best value for your time, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And Dan Sullivan calls this your unique ability, right? It's what you're great at. And that's where you should be spending most of your time, especially as entrepreneurs and leaders, typically is building the relationships, finding the new strategic partners, doing all these things. The more you do on doing, the more you're doing, the less you really are on thinking. And that's where you should be, is thinking what's next. Where do we go? What's the next big strategic move? 100%. So once you prove the model in Startup by Design, and then you prove yourself as a leader by design, I'm understanding my self-awareness and understanding what I need. Then you start building the team by design, and that leads you to business by design, this is Adi's favorite, of course, right? So business by design is, you know, you need an operating system. You need a system to help you go through all the mayhem. The more you grow, the harder it will get, the more complex it will be. It's easy when you're 2, 3, 10 people, but once you go past that, now you need to be repeating things over and over again, and you want consistency and you want all these things. So you need an operating system. There's a ton of them, EOS, Scaling Up, MAP, you know, all these systems out there. Just pick one, stick to it. And it's a great way to just put it in your business and have the meeting rhythms and all these things that help you really plan and align everybody on the same systems. I think you have a ton to say here, of course.
Absolutely, but I'm interviewing you, but you are saying the right thing. It's true. I mean, those systems, what they do, they create consistency, they create predictability, they create a sense of security for your staff, for the business, that the business will grow. And it really allows the visionary to continue to create the future, because the business is going to the foundation. This is the foundation, basically. Right now, you are you're building a strong building that will continue into the future, and you're creating the foundation in order to bring order into whatever the situation.
I think you feel stuck if you're in business by design, if everybody comes to you for everything and everybody's doing their things their own way. And clients are complaining and saying how amazing you are on this side, and then how terrible you are on this side, and there's no consistency, and nobody's delivering the same way. So I think business by design is more about consistency, about profitability, about executing. When you're stuck in this stage, communication is awful. You don't know who's doing what. You don't know what's happening. So all of this is about creating a system, an operating system that eases all of these tensions. Also, it puts everybody rowing on the same direction. We're all in the same team. We all want to achieve the same things. Let's all go through the same vision and really share it with all the team. And lastly, have the right accountability, pulse, and rhythm, a culture of transparency, accountability, open and honest, where we can really see, I don't have to question if I'm doing a good job or not. I don't have to go to a review with my boss. I know today if I did a good job or not, because my data, my results, my intentions, all the things I'm following the process are either on track or not, right? So having clarity, and it's easier, I think Brene Brown says, kindness is clarity, being clear, right? If we're just saying like, oh no, you're a great employee, but it's like, no, but you're not delivering the things, you're not doing the things, you're not behaving the way. So let's be clear on what you're delivering and what you're not delivering, so that you can always move forward in this. And business by design, achieving business by design, is really getting the business to work without the owner. So in my case, in Fit to Go, for 4 years, all I did was an hour and a half a week. And that was all I did in my business. I would just go into that meeting, my leadership team, everybody's there. Great. Okay. I get my feedback. Okay, goodbye. And then I got a dashboard I could look at anytime. I didn't worry about those things. And that was great. That was a life. Now I started 2 other businesses because of course I like to keep busy, but I think business by design is all about really detaching and decentralizing the entrepreneur from the business, right? It's not dependent of the entrepreneur. So we go through startup by design, then we go to leader by design, then we go to team by design, then we go to business by design, and lastly, we go to life by design. Now, this is the one we should start with all the time. I tell every entrepreneur who's going to start a business is, what do you want in life? What is your purpose? It's important to know these things before you start your business. It's not like me, that I just went into food and process and I don't know, everybody needs to eat, so let's start this business. I saw an opportunity. But life by design is all about understanding what your purpose is, understanding what you want from life, because your purpose is permanent. I know people are my purpose. Empowering people to achieve what they want to achieve their life by design is what they want to do. But my ideal life changes through time, right? If I have newborns and a wife and the whole thing, I want to be close to home. My ideal life is staying home and doing all these things from a virtual model or in person, et cetera, et cetera. But then while I grow, or your ideal life changes with your life. So then your purpose can shift with that. And the way you manifest your purpose throughout your life is different. So it's not that your purpose, your essence of your purpose is permanent, but your ideal life changes all the time. So the way you live your purpose is different all life. And what happens with most entrepreneurs is, of course, once you start living your ideal life, then you go back to probably another business, or you go back to another venture or another cause or another thing you want to do in your community or another thing you want to do somewhere else. So that's why we call it a flywheel, because it always just comes back to more. So that's kind of what the whole notion of the flywheel effect is, and the 5 stages of entrepreneurship is going through these models. And I came up with this model because in reality, that's what I saw. I saw this was common. This was something that most people go through. So our firm is based on this model and helping companies and entrepreneurs and leaders go through each of these stages and how to get unstuck and move to the next phase.
I love it. It's awesome. So give me some examples of, we all like the before and after stories. So give me some, share with us a before and after story of an entrepreneur that was in the first stage or the second stage, or even in the business by design stage. And then you help them get up to life by design. And what does life look like now?
I think, I just came from an event with him because he was sharing his story. So he's top of mind. But Brett Tremblay from Tremblay Law Firm here in South Florida, when he hired me, he was, I think, my third client onboarded. Now I run 2 different companies for him. Back then he was a 2-attorney law firm. It was 2 attorneys and a place. And I remember the first day we walked in, all of them were in suits and they had court right after our meeting and they couldn't stay any 5 minutes longer because they have so many things they needed to do and the whole thing. And the other attorney was like, this is a waste of time. I don't understand why I need to be here all day and plan what. We have cases and we need to buy the money. So that was the mentality of where we started. Now I flash forward, it's been 4 years now, 3 years, 4 years. No, it's been 4 years. And they're now 35 in their company, where they have 11 attorneys. And Brett Tremblay currently does not work there anymore. He's in the owner box. So he graduated himself out of the business with a firm that has his name, but he's still a managing partner. He still oversees a lot of the stuff, but he doesn't get involved with cases. He doesn't get involved with any of the things. And he's working an hour and a half every week on being there. And then while he was going through this transition, he started a new company called Get Staffed Up. So Get Staffed Up is a virtual assistant, full-time employees that's outsourced to Latin America for law firms. So that business went from 0 to 10 million in 1 year because, of course, again, he already went through the hard first time of going through the wheel. And then he said, second time around, he's like, no, I'm not doing this again. So him and his co-founder, Enrique, have built this amazing business of culture and all virtual team. And they've gone from 5 employees to 110 today they have in a year and a half or a year and 4 months, which is crazy ridiculous. But once you understand the roles, when you understand the system, when you understand what you need, it just makes it easier and easier and easier. So I don't know, that's the first one that came to mind because I just had an event with him that we had this morning. But
that's a wonderful story. It's a great success story. Very wow. That's amazing.
The funny thing is, this morning I told him, what's your biggest pain point right now? And the funniest part is we're all talking there and he says, I don't know what to do with my time. And I'm like, you have 2 businesses, you're growing like crazy both, and you don't know what to do your time. So you need to spend your time doing what you do best. So let's go to a purpose discovery. So let's go again. And
that's exactly right, because now it's time to discover what the purpose and what to do on the flywheel, and now it's easier. Exactly. I love that story, because that gives you the time to, that's why entrepreneurs are so valuable for this society, right? Because there are people that have the vision and they also get things done and they're not afraid of obstacles and they push forward, etc. So when they get more time, then they can use it to give back to the community, to mentor others, to create a new game. I mean, it's really an amazing story.
Well, that's why the purpose, I really believe that entrepreneurs change the world. Entrepreneurs are the source, the solution for every single problem in the world. I think many of us think that government is that, and I strongly disagree. I think entrepreneurs are the solution. We are the people who solve the issues, who see the opportunities, and who really bridge that gap between community and reality. And the more we can empower entrepreneurs to embrace their purpose, to live their super strengths, and really build communities that are purposeful, intentional, going through conscious capitalism in a way where it's impactful for everyone, that's the way we change the world. And we change it one company at a time.
I love it. What a great statement, and probably a great way to just segue to the end of this podcast. So if our listeners would like to read your book that is already out there, how would they do that?
So it'll be on Amazon. I have 2 books called The Profit Recipe. So the first one is for the food industry. That was a 2013 book. That was more around the 5 mistakes around what I did building a food business. This new one is The Profit Recipe: Unlock Your Entrepreneurial Flywheel to Achieve Life by Design. That should be out by mid-January on Amazon. And if not, just go to theprofitrecipe.com. That's our website. and you can see all the resources there, all the tools. And we have a ton of different HBR articles and, TED Talks and videos and things that relate to each of these stages so that they can help you get unstuck.
Beautiful. So theprofitrecipe.com. And if they want to directly ask you a question, how do they get a hold of you?
So I'm in LinkedIn, Cesar E. Quintero, and also Cesar at theprofitrecipe.com. So you can email me directly and we'll connect.
Love it. Cesar, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're super busy. You're running from one meeting to another and servicing another client and creating envisioning the future. So thank you so much for spending this time with us here and sharing your vast knowledge of how to be successful as an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Addie. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.